All right, so let's, you can continue. What were you saying?
Oh,
All right, we're working on developing the Sojourner Truth piece with Julia Wiley. And this is our kind of first formal rehearsal in terms of this. And we're talking about what stories are going to go into, into the piece. And you were talking about folks not knowing that there was really slavery happening in the North in a real way.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, talking about how a lot of people had no idea that there were slaves in the North. You know, when you talk about slavery, everybody in mind always thinks about the South.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the South is famous for stories on the cruelty with the slaves. And for some reason, our minds just automatically just gets away from that there were slaves in the North too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and in a way, we knew that it had to be the slaves in the North because when they abolished slavery, they had abolished slavery in the North first, and then they abolished slavery after the war, after the Civil War. They went ahead and they ended up abolishing slavery in the South too.
Mm-hmm.
So if we already knew that they had abolished slavery in the North, that means there had to been slaves in the North. This is one of the books that was written about Sojourner Truth, but this is not the most famous one. This one is the Book of Life.
But who wrote that?
Who wrote it? Let me see who wrote this. I'm not sure if this is a woman or a man that wrote this one. I like this particular one. This one here, Book of Life. I like Book of Life. There's a lot of stuff in here that I outlined. Let me see. See who wrote this book.
I had something.
This one here, I don't. It should be in here, but I don't see it just right here. There have been books written by women. The book that is the most popular and I find to be the most accurate out of all her books is its name's Sojourner Truth. I have to get the real correct name of that book. That book that I'm talking about, a woman sat down and interviewed her. And based on what she was saying, she wrote what she said and she published it into the book. That book is one of the most accurate books about her life. These are the words from her, what she said, the exact words that she said. And the woman who wrote the book and published it for her, definitely stand by everything that she is saying. Some of these other books, but this one in particular, the Book of Life, it has a lot of different speeches that she's done through her travels. This is a book by Neil Painter. I'm not a big fan of his book because he puts a lot of sexual stuff in there. and he insinuates that she was participating in certain sexual situations that is not documented. It's his opinion, but it can lead people astray, saying that she had sex with her masters. There is nothing in nowhere that can prove that she had sex. He is guessing, saying that she was molested by her last master's wife. There's nothing to indicate that nowhere, saying that she most likely was and just was too ashamed to say it in her autobiography, the book with her autobiography. There's more important things about an outstanding woman like Sojourner Truth other than sexual situations. We all know that slaves were abused sexually, and they were terribly and horribly abused. But what can you say? You know, that's why you got people with different complexions now. So to me, that wasn't the biggest point. But he constantly, through this book, he tries to make that a point somewhere in his book. And that part I don't appreciate. You see how thick this is? Yeah, the one by Neil Panther. Thick book. There's a lot of good stuff in here. But still, he has distorted a lot of stuff in here too. Another thing with Sojourner Truth.
Can I see that book there?
Okay, it's by Neil Panther. Another thing about Sojourner Truth is the speech, the controversy about the speech. Well, it looks like we about got that she did that speech that went around, written by Catherine Cage. Catherine Cage was at the convention that Sojourner Truth was to speak at on the second day of the convention. And she wrote 7 years after the convention what was supposed to have been the speech that Sojourner Truth gave at the convention. The speech was terribly distorted from what she said and how she said it. But the way Catherine Cage wrote the speech, she made it more extreme. And the speech had a certain flair to it, even though it was a lot of falseness in it, but it had flair. So people enjoy, saying that this is a speech that Sojourner Truth gave. There was a newspaper that published her speech, and they published that speech a few days after the convention. And it was a big difference, One of the things that I wanted to mention that kind of gave it away was that in the speech that Catherine Cage wrote, so they got her saying that she had 13 children. And I remember I questioned that the first time I saw the speech. In fact, I performed the speech several times for Miss Sherry Bailey.
When did we do that?
Mm-hmm.
When did we do that?
The speech?
Uh-huh.
We did the speech at Juneteenth. Okay. We did the speech at Juneteenth, and we did the speech.
I'm usually running around at Juneteenth, so I don't get to appreciate. I'm usually running around at Juneteenth, so I don't get to appreciate the hard work that gets done.
I did the speech also at I can't remember the place that we did the two Harriets.
Okay.
We did the Harriet Tubman and the Harriet Beecher Stowe, right?
Uh-huh.
And I believe I remember doing the speech there.
Okay.
You know, because I remember being in a room, a small room like that, and in the speech, Sojourner Truth says, you know, that little man over there. And I remember saying, yeah, and that little man over there.
Right.
And this guy actually was looking around. He thought he was in the audience. He thought I was looking. Well, so that's why I remember that time. Right. So, well, yeah, you know, that speech, you know, she's saying about this guy over here and this, that, and the speech sounds very flamboyant and people like the speech, but she's using words like nigger, and she's saying that she had 13 kids, which she did not. And plus she's using a very strong Southern accent.
I'm holding up a copy of a flyer that we have for Abolitionist Museum. And in it, you'll see Sojourner Truth right here. And this features these 8 abolitionists. And the museum, they're wax figures in a museum. And the museum curator brings in a Confederate flag. And we got to Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Beecher Stowe, David Walker, is that John Brown, Frederick Douglass, Nat Turner, Abraham Lincoln. And it is, the curator brings in the Confederate flag, and then they debate whether or not to burn the flag. And Sojourner Truth is like the ringleader on terms of burning the flag. She shows up with the flag, and she's like, we're gonna burn this flag.
Right. She's insisting that this flag gets burnt. And she keeps wanting everybody to get to burning the flag, and everybody is telling their own personal story.
Right.
And she always interrupts and says, but what about the flag?
Right.
What are we going to do about this flag? You know, when we going to burn this flag? You know.
What I'd love to do right now, in fact, is to read to do that scene with Sojourner Truth, where we talk about her life and everything. Are you up for that, Julia? You want to do that quick scene with Sojourner Truth?
Okay, which one?
Where she talks, when we say
about burning the flag.
No, tell them. You know.
Okay.
Yeah, I forget what page it comes on. But we should do that other scene too, because in honor of the Gettysburg Address, which was the anniversary of that was November 19th, a couple days ago. This is November 21st. We did the Gettysburg Address, but right now I'm talking about on page 24. You know, I'm going to give the line just before then, where they're asking you about whether or not you're going to vote.
A line before that? Okay, because Harriet Tubman, my dear sister Sojourner is...
I'm going to start right there.
Okay.
My dear sister Sojourner is possessed by God. She knows what we must do.
Yes, Sister Harriet, you are correct. I know what to do, and my vote is...
Wait. I haven't told the audience anything about you.
Tell them.
She was alone, utterly alone in the big city of New York. Her family disorganized, her marriage shattered, her name was in disgrace. All was lost, or so it seemed to Isabella Van Wagner as she looked back on her life in the spring of 1843.
I have always prayed to God, like one human being talking to another. And one day, while I was in the house of the family I worked for, when suddenly from the walls, from the ceilings, from the very air came an answer. A voice said,
Isabella Van Wagner, there is another person within you.
June 1st, 1843, I went to my employer, Mrs. Whiting, and told her, my name is Sojourner Truth. God made me Sojourner For I am to go up and down the lands, showing people their sins and being a sign unto them.
Sojourner Truth was the first Black woman to become a public speaker in the abolitionist movement.
4 to burn, 3 not to burn. What to do, what to do. That's all right.
I was also going to tell about the time you exposed your breast in public.
Theater is always in good taste.
You challenged me mightily, Miss Truth. Frederick Douglass. One night she asked me a very difficult question. Frederick, is God dead? Of course not. How could one think such a thing?
Mrs. Stowe. Mrs. Stowe, my question was directed to Mr. Douglass.
God lives, but he is angry. Well, aren't you going to chastise Mr. Brown?
Mr. Brown can say whatever he pleases.
Harriet Beecher Stowe, how do you feel about the fact that Uncle Tom has evolved into an insult ranking only behind nigger as an utterance sure to provoke emotions in many corners? Uncle Tom was a good man, a strong man. David Walker says, the time for action is upon us. Abraham Lincoln says, the Union must be served. Harriet Tubman says, Mr. Lincoln, the union of good and evil taints all.
Which is why we must burn the flag.
And I think that's it for that scene there, really, to give a sense of Miss Sojourner Truth and her position in the terms of burning the flag. We will, I have to just before that scene, we have the Gettysburg Address, and because it ends in the play with Sojourner Truth taking up the charge here.
Okay.
So that would be
John Brown.
right there in 23. We start on actually into the middle of 22, and Sojourner does speak, have a couple lines within there.
The brave man living and dead here. The brave man living and them. Okay, 100 you.
Okay.
Want to go through?
Yeah, we'll go through and we'll go to the end of the God Bless America. 7 years ago, our founders brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all people are created equal. Now we're engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We're met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground.
The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract.
The world will no longer remember what we say here, but it can never forget what these soldiers did here. It is for us, the living rather, to be dedicated to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
God bless America. It's time to renew. Should we do that over?
You can.
And
the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
God bless America. It's time to vote.
And she has the Confederate flag, and she's ready to just kind of tear it up and do all sorts of stuff. Because
somebody said, burn it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a sign. Yes.
Yeah, we're going to
signal to others.
We're going to do Abolitionist Museum soon, because it never fails to get.
I don't know. But there's somewhere in here that I do say burn that flag.
Yeah, you do near the end there. At the end, you remember you tear it up and you throw it in the curator's face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I said it around here too. Okay.
Cool beans.
We must burn that flag.
So in terms of our order of things, we initially are talking about what we're gonna, I think we should do is lay it out chronology in terms of like how, when things happen. And then once we have that,
Okay,
we move it around based on, kind of the ebb and flow of everything.
okay, the first thing that always struck me was the cellar.
The what?
The cellar.
The cellar.
When they
yeah.
were put in the cellar.
Put in the cellar.
Yeah, the cellar.
All right. And
And
that was when she was young, a child?
Yes, she was very young
Okay.
when they had to be in the cellar. That was after their master passed away,
Okay.
and his son sold the house and bought a hotel,
Uh-huh.
and he had nowhere for the slaves to live.
Uh-huh.
So he made them live in the cellar, which was small and tight and damp and just was not suitable
Right.
for human beings to live in a spot like that.
Uh-huh.
And the slaves got sick
Right.
and pneumonia. It was just bad. It was a bad thing. Okay, so then she got sold.
Right.
She got sold, and she didn't speak any English, so she got whipped because the man she was sold to wife did not like her.
Okay.
So she got severely whipped, which left scars on Sojourner Truth for the rest of her life.
Physical scars or mental, emotional scars?
Yeah. Also, her name, her birth name was Annabella.
Isabella?
Isabella, that's right, you're right. It was Isabella, Isabella, very pretty name. Let's see, after that.
So do you know how old she was when she was sold?
She was young, I do have it, let me see if I wrote it in one of my books.
Okay. So she didn't speak English, she spoke what?
She was Dutch, she spoke Dutch, because that's what the people who brought her spoke Dutch.
Okay. And then, okay, so put in the cellar, sold to a niece, particularly the wife, who didn't like her, didn't speak English, spoke Dutch.
Okay, but she was young. I'll say she might have been 9. I have to check.
Okay. Okay, so then anything in her teenage years that you would say?
Teenager, she was staying with. She got sold to some people who were gypsies, and that was not good. But it's not a bad story.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that she was allowed to do a lot of wild things.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say she got turned on to cussing, so she started cursing. They drank a lot. They smoked cigarettes. She started smoking. She was wild, but they did not abuse her.
Okay.
Okay, so after that, she got sold to her last master. Those stories are pretty good. The highlight of that is when she left.
Mm-hmm.
When she finally left. Now she did meet a man, but and it was almost the same thing like with Harriet Tubman. She met a man, she couldn't keep him. She had they wouldn't. His master would not allow him to marry into another. I don't know what you call it, but he couldn't do it. It wasn't allowed.
Right. He didn't.
So,
basically, they needed permission from the owner to be able to be a couple.
yeah, and he was sneaking off to see Sojourner Truth.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, she was Isabella.
Okay.
So then she was married. she got married to someone that her master wanted her to marry.
Okay.
She didn't have any feelings for this man, but she went ahead and married him. After that, then she wanted to run off because she felt like a master promised her freedom a year early, and he changed his mind and made her do extra work in order to get it. And he still, when the time came, she finished the work, he still wouldn't let her go. So she left on her own. When she left, she started staying with another couple who were Quakers, I believe. And they didn't believe in slavery. She had a son. Her master came looking for her.
Who was the father? Who was the father?
Supposed to be that man who she married, but they ended up separating.
Okay.
She wasn't happy with him. So, because she had a baby, when she left, she had a newborn.
Okay.
She ran off to stay with these Quakers. Her son, when the master came looking for her, and he asked her to come back home, and she refused. And he said, well, then give me the child. And she refused to give him the child. So the Quakers, to settle things, paid her master for her and for the baby. So he would leave them alone. He took the money and he let it go, but he turned around and took her son and gave her son to, I think it was his brother-in-law. And the brother-in-law took her son and put him back into slavery, probably sold him back into slavery. And Sojourner Truth went to court to try to get her son back because that was illegal for a slave to leave that is already free.
She was not Sojourner Truth at this point. She was still Isabella.
Yeah, she was still Isabella. She became Sojourner Truth. I believe the Quakers might have been the Van Wagners. I have to check that again.
Okay. All right.
I believe it was around that time when she realized that she was going to be Sojourner Truth.
And she was also, she was the first documented Black woman to go to court.
Yes, which I did not know until you told me.
Okay.
But I was surprised. I was surprised when I read how she went to court and like that, because even today it's not that easy for a Black woman. You got to take it. Okay.
Hey, Ken, come on. Yeah, I'll call you back.
No, you can't be in this. You can't be.
Okay,
no.
Thank you. Okay.
Even today, it's not that easy for a Black woman to go to court. You gotta move back. You're in the. Even today, it's not that easy for a Black woman to go to court and fight for something.
Right.
When I read how she went to court, I was impressed that she actually went to court and go back further. No, sorry.
That's fine.
You have to take that
out. This is rehearsal, and in rehearsal with JuneteenthVA, we have all sorts of things going on.
Why you can't sit there? You're gonna be good. Don't let your face be showed. So anyway, so her going to court was important. Her going to court and winning that case. She was determined. It was her inner determination that took her through what she went through.
Right.
She didn't think about being defeated.
Right.
The thought of defeat did not enter her mind. She was determined that she was going to get her son back. And that's what she focused on. And that's the reason why I believe she went through that. It's almost like, don't you know, woman, that you are Black and you are going before a legal system and demanding that they do what you want you to do. Do you know what you're doing?
Right.
But she was so upset as to what happened. That's the only thing that was in her mind, to get it done, to get her son. And she won the case, and she got her son back. Now, unfortunately, which is another story, her son was badly mistreated, and her son saw all kind of cruelty in the South. He witnessed stuff that was happening to the other slaves.
Mm-hmm.
He was telling his mother some of the stuff he seen. It was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible. She even said that she did not mention everything her son told her because it was so cruel. But I would say one of them is this woman who she must have just had a baby, and her breast was full of milk, and they whipped her. They whipped her until blood. I can't remember if the blood was coming out of her breast, but they whipped her. The milk and everything was coming out while they whipped that woman. You know, it just was terrible. So after that, then she ended up, her son, things didn't work out with him. He ended up, they were staying in New York. She moved to New York, and he was around a wrong crowd. He was smoking cigarettes and probably doing all kind of mess. And he kept getting in trouble. She kept getting him out of trouble. And then finally, he went to the Merchant Marines, and he went on with a ship. And he was writing her, and all of a sudden, he didn't write her anymore. And it was almost guaranteed he was dead. Because on a ship, you make trouble, or they don't like you, you find yourself dead and your body thrown overboard. And when she stopped hearing from him, most likely he was dead.
Right.
He was already dead.
I mean, this kind of points to how, when they talk about PTSD or post-traumatic stress syndrome and so forth like that, PTSD, we see this. I mean, this is where it starts, and you can't tell me that it doesn't pass down to the generations in terms of like how people, live their lives and how they're impacted by these horrible things, So, the idea that, here, several generations later, that we're not still being impacted by that. Plus, it continues in subsequent generations. It's not that it was just this one incident in, the 1700s and 1800s, but it happened in the 1900s. It happened, in the 2000s. It's happening now,
Right.
in the 21st century, that we are being exposed to these traumas, and it impacts who we are and how we live our lives. So that's why when we talk about reparations, and people are like, well, you weren't alive doing that you don't deserve any kind of reparations or anything like that. They're wrong. They're wrong. We are still impacted by what happened in the past. And telling Sojourner Truth's story is a way of telling the truth about that very thing.
And there are so many people that are protesting. Now, we talked about this not long ago, all around the world,
Yeah.
because it was so many countries that got involved in that slave trade. All they did was look at the money,
Right.
So, and I'm gonna throw this in, because when people try to bring up about your people sold you, my people did not just sell me. White people went over to Africa and got a bargain. They offered them something if they did this. Africans did not just say, oh, well, let me take some people and just give it to the, no, I don't know what they said to convince them to do it, but they went over there with the intentions on convincing these people to work with them to get these slaves.
Well, we do know that initially, in terms of how enslavement worked in African cultures, is that it was almost like indentured servitude. It worked in this country, where folks were able to climb out of that status. They were able to work hard, save their money, and actually, be free. And that was more or less the way that enslavement worked in Africa. And so they did not expect it to, be what it turned out to be in this country in the Caribbean, where people were like abused and mistreated, and made slaves for life, as opposed to being able to work their way up to the middle class.
Also, some tribes were enemies,
Right, right,
so
right.
they didn't care, but they were getting money
Right.
or getting something from the white people.
Yeah.
That's why they did it. They did not just turn around and say, "Oh, well, let me just." No,
Right.
they were offered. They were. It was a transaction.
Right. Capitalism.
Right.
Triumphed over decency and morality.
You're right. So and something else too. Those white folks, if they could have went to Africa and captured those slaves without any help, they would have. They could not have went over there and just grabbed some slaves. So they had to figure out how they was going to get other Africans to do it. Africans didn't just grab people for no reason and just throw them into slavery. They were offered, they were enticed into this.
So we need to get back to our kind of bullet list here in terms of
Sojourner Truth.
Sojourner Truth.
But I believe after that, she did the famous speech. She after the famous speech, she continued to go around her campaign to change the status quo. She wanted to change things. She wanted to change the way women were treated. She wanted to change people happen to be slaves. People happen to work and not really being paid for what they was worth.
So she was a part of the suffragette movement, the women's movement rather, and the abolitionist movement.
Right.
She changed her name before she started doing that work. Her name changed.
Right. She changed her name too, Sojourner Truth.
Right, 1843.
Yeah, she changed it. I can't remember the exact year, but it was when it was after she left. She left her last master.
Okay.
But that was basically it. And then she did the famous speech, and she went around with a lot of things she accomplished in the community.
The famous speech, you mean Ain't I a Woman? Is that the one we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
She did that speech in, I think, 1851.
And that was separate from her exposing her breast. Is that the same?
No, when she exposed her breast, that was, I gotta find the book. I have it in one of my books.
Mm-hmm.
It was a doctor. It was something about a doctor. And it was a crowd of people, and he said, she's not a woman anyway, she's a man. And she turned around and she, showed her breast. But the book made it seem as though she faced the doctor and showed her breast to the doctor, not to the crowd. I have to find out what book that was I saw it in.
Yeah, we need to get that clear.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, then the meeting with Lincoln is an important meeting.
Yes, which I didn't read a lot about it. When I get to the Lincoln part, I always skip over that. Yeah, I always skip over that. I mean,
Why? Why do you skip over it?
I don't know. I just felt like the political scene really is not as much for helping us as they try to make it seem. And I mean, it was nice that he allowed her to come in there, and he took the pictures with her, and I think Harriet Tubman was there also.
Not at the same time.
Yeah, you're probably right. So, like I says, I kind of skipped over that part. I do have to read that though.
That makes me.
I do have to read that. It's just no. I had more interest in her other accomplishments, the things that she went through before she was able to become the person she was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she went through a lot.
And I think she appreciated though that the political
Well, yeah, she did, and
details were part of the life
Mike,
she had to live.
had Lincoln there, you know, and she got that picture with him.
Mm-hmm.
But with all the politicians and still having situations like this going on,
Even
it's
today, here we are, November 2021,
Right.
and we don't, the current president is still acting like he didn't lose the election. And politics are impacting, our very lives. We're in the middle of a pandemic and needing to be able to get the next administration set to be able to deal with that. And instead, we have, Trump doing what he's doing. That's why we got the little sign here, dump Trump, he's a chump.
Yeah, he don't even want to let it go. I feel like he has a lot to do with why people feel like they could, in this day and time, lynch a human being. There were
Exactly.
2 lynches this year.
It's not a joke.
Come on. People felt like, well, Trump's not going to do anything about it. He feels the same way we do. It shouldn't have been like that. And also, what happened? Remember the guys who were at the college. Remember they were protesting.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what group that was. There was a group of, but the girl got killed. The girl got killed the next day. They were protesting about the statue at the college.
Oh, yeah, at University of Virginia in Charlottesville.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was in 20.
And that girl got killed. Yeah.
Yeah, Heather Heyer, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
I remember her name. And
I mean, in this day and time, and these people were young. They were young folks. There wasn't no old people
Right.
running around here protesting about the statue.
Right. That's why I love doing Abolitionist Museum, because we get the audience, people to talk about these issues. And that's the goal of this. This is the goal of telling Sojourner Truth's story also, is that she can serve as a inspiration, a role model.
Yes, and also for people to know who might have blocked it out or didn't realize that there was slavery in the North.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was more indentured servitude in the North than the South. I could be wrong, but
Well, in the North, they did more, they created more policies to end slavery. They didn't necessarily do it as quickly as they did, as they should have. But they certainly were far ahead of the South, in terms of like ending slavery. Although I would say that most of the folks who were fighting for the Union during the Civil War didn't necessarily think that they were fighting to end slavery, but more to keep the Union preserved.
But the Union, what? Hello? Hello, may I help you?
Actually, we'd be ready to.
Hello? Oh, no, hey, call it. Oh, I thought they. Derek, did you call the Uber?
No.
Well, what they call?
All right. So here we go. That is rehearsal for Sojourner Truth. And
Well, I don't know, the phone's almost dead.